Welcome everyone, today we have a new build guide for Diablo 4 and we'll be looking into a Sorceress build for both PvE and also PvP, and this will be the 4th Sorcerer. So coming over to our summary notes, what we'll do is we'll go through the overall highlights and also we'll go through the type of skills, and later in the build we'll talk about the enchantment options after the skill tree. Because what you're going to see is there's a lot of good things about the Frost Mage, because there's a lot of control, a lot of debuffs, a lot of bonus damage, and again, it's going to be very good for PvP, especially with the multicasting. So let's go through the highlights. As for this particular mage build, our 4 spells will always chill enemies and slow enemies and also freeze enemies. Ideally, you can see the potential of this build in PvP, because mage is very more mobile with blinks and also defensive with a lot of force spells. And enemies have a hard time getting close to you and also constantly getting controlled and also frozen a lot. And especially when we have spells hit onto enemies, they will be cast onto vulnerable, taking extra damage and also have special triggers for the special effects we have. Now there is a double chance for multicasting with free spells when enemies are vulnerable, and on top of that, we also increase the duration of our summons, and also we can decide to have a bonus of 100% attack speed of the summons of the ice blades we have. We also deal a tremendous additional damage on top of the 20% damage for vulnerability. So there's a lot of perks for another 18, 40, 11 and also 30% more damage. We'll go through this in the skill tree. Now we also deal 70% bonus damage onto frozen enemies with the Codex. So the effect with controlling enemies also comes as a bonus when we gain resource and also the crowd control spreads onto enemies. Now, while having a barrier activated for the Frost Mage, you also convert your cold frozen damage into bonus barrier, and this also allows you to deal 30% more damage. And again, we also have a chance of freezing enemies whenever we cast a force spell. 9% chance to instantly freeze enemies, and this is especially good. So now quickly going over to the type of skills we'll use. So the basic skill will go with Frostbolt. As for the core skill, I also made 2 different skill trees just for different variation of the 4 skill. So we could be going with the Frozen Orbs, or we can go with Ice Shard. I do think Ice Shard would deal more damage in terms of PvP, and Frozen Orbs might be better versus a horde of monsters. For defensive skill, we can go with Ice Armor, and for conjunction, we can go with Ice Blade. And as for mastery, we'll go with Blizzard. Blizzard is going to be a very interesting spell, and because of the enchantment options with Blizzard, it gets more interesting. It can also be a defensive spell. As for ultimate, we go with Deep Freeze. It's like World of Warcraft with the ice cube that you become invulnerable. And this also resets almost all of your cooldowns, because this will halve your cooldowns of the existing skills that is not ultimate skills. And also, as for Capstone, we go with Ice Fall. This is when we deal additional massive damage with a proc rate of 10 to 20%. And the proc rate becomes 20% because it's doubled when enemy become vulnerable. And on top of that, we'll also be getting free casting of spells, which converts us into the multicasting mage. Because when the proc rate comes, you deal 40% more damage, your spells are free to cast. So coming over to a skill tree. Now do keep in mind, I have made a slight variation of the spells, and I'll briefly talk about it when we get there, because one of the spells will include Teleport, which I think will be very good for PvP. Now if you're not doing Teleport a lot, and if you want to do more AoE damage, I think the first spell tree is not bad as well. So as for the basic spell, we'll go with Frostbolt. Level 1 should be enough, and going to its upgrades, having a chance of dealing additional chill to enemies, and also we have the chance of making frozen enemies vulnerable. This is definitely good because we want both frozen and also vulnerability, and the ability to chill enemies is not bad. If you find yourself short on mana, and if you find yourself have enough vulnerability, you can also change the perk into gaining more mana onto chilled and also frozen enemies. Now as for the core skill, we have 2 choices. One of them is going to be the Frozen Orb. Just to show you guys a little bit of what the Frozen Orb looks like, we can see over here on Wallhead. So let me try to show you guys over here. You can see the Frozen Orb over here, and you can see it. It's pretty similar to what I saw in Diablo 3 back then, I think. So the Frost Orb is not bad for clearing away of enemies, and it travels relatively fast. And over here you also gain additional damage when you are casting the spell above 50 mana. And on top of that, if the Frozen Orb has, making a chance of hitting enemies and make them vulnerable. So this is the definitely debuff that we want, because vulnerable is going to be the essential thing for the Frost Mage. And this means you deal more damage to enemies and also to players. Now again, if you find yourself really short on mana, you can go with a mana perk, but ideally I want to go with vulnerability. Now if we come over to the second variation, what we're going to see is I'll be perking into the Ice Shard. And perking into the Ice Shard allows me to launch Ice Shards that deals 25% damage for 5 of them, and deals 25% more damage when hitting frozen enemies, and we'll be freezing them a lot, so you'll see very soon. Now Ice Shards have a 50% chance to ricochet. It's really not bad, it's basically a bonus Ice Shard. So on top of that, the Ice Shard, when you have a barrier, which you will have a barrier, trust me, and Ice Shard will treat enemies as if they're frozen. When they are frozen, Ice Shard will deal increased damage. And there's also other special effects against frozen enemies and dealing more damage to enemies. So this is definitely a better single target spell, and this could be better against players who you control into PvP. Now, I haven't tested out exactly which one will be better in terms of PvE, of course, this is just theoretical, but I think in PvP, Ice Shard will be better, maybe a little bit better in terms of the focus damage, especially when enemies are frozen by your spells and also by your ultimate. Now coming over to the defense section of the tree, we'll be going with Ice Armor. Notice I didn't go with all 5 points into Ice Armor, this is just because I was a little short on points. You can of course allocate your skill accordingly and go into more points with Ice Armor. Now here when Ice Armor is activated, you gain 25% mana regeneration increase. And the biggest one is over here. When Ice Armor is activated, you gain another 30% damage increase. And the special thing about Ice Armor is the damage you deal, the cold damage you deal, becomes added to the Ice Armor. So the more freeze and also more cold damage you deal, the greater your armor is. And this means that you want to keep a barrier going because you deal more damage while having a barrier. Now in terms of the offensive perks, we can always go with Glass Cannon, which means 18% more damage for taking 9% more damage. Now if we come over to the second skill tree, you can see that it is a little different. I'll give you guys the link for both of them. You can see that I also perked into 5 levels in Ice Armor and also 1 level in Teleport. So what that means is I won't be perking into the Conjunction tree for more PvP build, because I think it's better to have more defensive and also more mobility. So 1 point in Teleport and also 1 point into teleporting take less damage. And you can also see because I have a bit 3 points, I also went into 8% into healthy enemies bonus damage and also increased damage by 24% after 3 seconds. Because in PvP, ideally you'll be moving around. While you're moving around, you also gain bonus damage. So coming over to the Conjunction tree for the Mage. Now this is more focused on PvE, so we'll go with 5 points into Ice Blades. After that we can go with upgrade of Ice Blades that makes enemy more vulnerable by 10%. Now this is a choice. If you want longer Ice Blades, which I do because I want having the Conjunction spell activated, will deal more damage for 6% while it's activated. While this is happening, you can extend the duration of your Ice Blade by 1 second each time they kill vulnerable enemies. And most enemies will be vulnerable. Now what you can also do is, if you find your Ice Blade not doing enough damage or you want a faster attack speed, you can convert this into 100% attack speed for the Ice Blades. Now over here we'll be going with similar passives for both of the skill tree. You can see the PvP skill tree didn't go with Ice Blades, but I went with those passives. So the passive here, the lucky hit chance increase is very good. A lot of our triggers will require lucky hit, so increasing this by 15% is great overall. And here we'll go with 1 point in alignment of enemy elements and also into 3 points into protection. A very big factor for protection is that you'll have cooldown activation skills. For example, the Ice Blades, and also you have the Ice Armor, and also in terms of PvP you also have the Teleport over here, right? So those spells have cooldowns, especially also your ultimate have cooldowns. Each time you cast those spells, you gain a barrier. And the focus of this barrier is your ultimate also halves your cooldowns of your existing spells. So you get more barrier because of this. And when you have more barrier, your ice barrier over here will last, Ice Armor will last longer and also helps you to deal more damage with its perks for 30% damage. Now the rest of the tree for both of my variation build for the PvP or the hybrid build will be very similar, so we just focus on one tree. So here for the Mastery section, we'll go with Blizzard. Level 5 in Blizzard and also its upgrades. Now I do decide to go with Blizzard that every second enemies in the Blizzard they take 2.5 up to 20% more damage. Now we could go with Blizzard cost less mana, but the thing is you are specially perking into free mana mage, so it's okay for them to not be discounting mana. Now one thing to focus is there is a special perk over here that makes you more defensive with the Blizzard. So while within your own Blizzard you take 10% less damage. And if you're also considering to perk Blizzard into your enchantment spell, you'll have a Blizzard every 15 seconds, you get 4 seconds of free Blizzard. And this Blizzard will follow you, and this means you take less damage because of the codex. Now over here we also have some interesting passives. So we have Ice Vent, which means your parry have a 15% increased duration, which is good because you have lots of barriers. And on top of that, you deal more damage to enemies who are chilled, and up to 18% while they're frozen. Means more damage, right? So this is really good for us. No, I didn't go into 8% more chill up to 24% more chill, because I think we have enough chill. Now, coming over to the ultimate section of the skill tree, for the Frost Mage, we can go with Deep Frost. Deep Frost will allow you to become an Ice Cube. You become immune to damage for 4 seconds and also removing debuffs. And you'll be chilling enemies around you. And when enemies, when the duration of the spell ends, the frozen enemies will shatter for 200% damage, I believe. And this means that you can also be controlling enemies and dealing damage while they're frozen. You can also trigger this spell again to activate the spell more quickly. Now the upgrades of this spell allows you to gain your base life as barrier, which is not bad. And also, this is going to be really good. This allows the Supreme Deep Freeze, allows your no ultimate cooldowns to be reduced by 50%. This means you can be casting your spells much more frequently and benefiting for getting a shield for the passives over here. So this passive, the protection passive, gives you a shield when you cast a cooldown. And then this reduces your cooldown. And this makes you more durable, more mobile in terms of PvP and also PvE. Now if you look over to some of the passives, I did perk into all of the Mage, Frost Mage passives. So you deal more damage against vulnerable enemies, and also when enemies are frozen and vulnerable, you deal 18% more damage. Over here you also deal another 12% more damage to vulnerable enemies. So you see why I want to go vulnerability a lot in the passive trees in the previous skills. And here the Frost Mage will deal 15% more damage against elites. And finally, your 4 skills have 9% chance of freezing enemies. And you also have a boost of lucky hit chance by over here by another 15%. Now in terms of the choice of the capstone, I do have 2 choices. One is to shatter, that means when freeze expires, enemies explode in damage. But ideally, most Frost Mage players will go into Ice Fall. So the lucky hit chance is 10% up to 20% when you cast your main spells, including Ice Shard, Frost Orbs, and also the Blizzard. So those are some of the skills we have considered. Both of the builds have at least 2 of the spells. And when the lucky hit chance triggers, so at 10% normally and 20% when enemies are vulnerable. So that's why we want vulnerability. So at 20% chance, you'll deal 40% more damage with those spells. And they also be free to cast. So this is why we become the multicasting mage and also a burst of damage. Now right away with the skills, you can see the focus of the spells will be freezing enemies, making them more vulnerable, which gives us boost of damage and also allows us to multicast. So some of the consideration for the enchantment sections will be over here. So those are the 4 spells or 5 spells I thought about going with enchantment. The first spot, Frozen Orbs or Ice Shard, maybe Ice Blades or Blizzard. So Blizzard, we talk about Blizzard, so every 15 seconds, a Blizzard follow you for 4 seconds. And this works with the Codex. So coming over the first spot over here. So the enchantment for first spot means your direct damage 100% chills enemies. What that means is you want enemies to be chilled than to be frozen. So once enemies are chilled multiple times, they'll be frozen. And if you find yourself freezing enemies a lot, you don't have to take this enchantment. If you want to freeze enemies more, this is definitely good for you. Now as we move over, the Ice Shard means that whenever enemies are frozen, you shoot a free Ice Shard. I don't think this is going to be massive unless you have more points in this. So if you have more points into the Ice Shard, like maybe 5 points, then you will do more damage to frozen enemies. And your ultimate also freezes enemies. Now the alternative choice will be getting a free Frozen Orb whenever you launch a non-basic spell. And because you have so many free spells, this can trigger a lot often. So 20% chance to get another Frozen Orb sent to the enemy. Now finally, one of the interesting enchantment will be getting more Ice Blades. And this could be quite interesting. If you're lucky enough with the triggers, you can get multiple Ice Blades. And this is at 10% killing 1 enemy. If you have to kill 10 enemies, maybe you get 2 or 3. And if you have your lucky chance, right, lucky perks. And those blades can be, getting more extended duration when you kill enemies, or you can make them attack super fast. So in terms of enchantment, I think I will go with 4 spot if I want more freeze. I'll definitely go with Blizzard for a bit of the raining of the Blizzard. And finally I'll pick between the rest of the skills to see which one I want the most. Maybe 3 Frozen Orbs or maybe 3 Frozen Blades or Ice Blades. Now coming over to the Codex for the Ice Mage build. So here we have some interesting ones. We talk about the 10% less damage while standing in on Blizzard for the Snow Guard. Now we can also go with the Snow Veil aspect because casting Ice Armor makes us unstoppable for 2 seconds, and this will be really good for PvP. Now we can also go with aspect of Unrivering. So that means that 5% chance to reset your cooldowns of one of your defensive skills. And I guess this is good for PvP and also PvE, especially when you have both of your spells over here, Teleport and also Ice Armor for both of the defensive spells. Now as we keep going, in terms of offense, because you'll be freezing enemies a lot, so 40% increase to frozen damage to frozen enemies, it will be good. And here we go with another 30% more damage to frozen enemies. It's a little silly, right? This one's 40%, this one's 30%, but I think the aspect of control is for mages and certain class only. Now we can also go with aspect of Biting Cold, which means when we freeze enemies, there's a chance to make them more vulnerable for 3 seconds. 25% chance is okay. And also aspect of Piercing Cold. This is for the Ice Shard build. So Ice Shard pierces 4 times and they deal less damage for the piercing of enemies. But piercing is actually not bad. So this makes the Ice Shard a little more AoE based, I think. And over here we also have the Storm Swirl aspect, which means you deal more damage to vulnerable enemies when having a barrier, which is also good, right? Because we're constantly having a barrier with Ice Armor and also with the barrier passives. If you also want more barrier, you can also come over here to pick a few of the barrier skills over here to get more barrier, like the aspect of Protector. Now in terms of resource, because we'll be crowd controlling enemies with Chill and then also Freeze, we can go with getting 1 resource for each time we control enemies. And that together will be combined with aspect of Shared Misery. That means crowd control enemies will spread onto others by 30%, which is very good. And the lucky hit will be boosted because we have a lucky hit rate passive and also our weapon gives higher lucky hit. Now we don't have any great in terms of the mobility over here. We can go with movement speed after teleporting, especially in PvP, so keep that in mind. Let me see if I perked into this. Yeah, in PvP I did perk into this. In PvE I thought maybe we don't have enough skills and we don't have teleport, so I didn't perk into this. Now hopefully you guys enjoy the Force Mage build. I did spend some time really considering what skills I want to use and how can I make this skill a little hybrid in terms of different builds for PvP and also for PvE. Hopefully you guys enjoy this form of theory crafting and also building for the skills. I know that the beta is coming very soon, very excited, and I'll be making lots of guides and also tips for the beta as well. And after the beta we'll go into more skills and also more theory crafting for the launch of the game. Now before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. So I just started a YouTube channel with my girlfriend yesterday, and you can see this is only 12 hours old, this YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.